Let's move over to the Western Division, and let's start out with a surprise team that came on in the second half of the year in only his first year as head coach. That's Houston Nutt and Ole Miss. Now in his second year, finished his season by demolishing Texas Tech last year. At 9-4, they returned 16 starters. A lot of hype about them this year. Question about them: how can they handle success? Can they play as the hunted rather than the hunter? Jevin Sneed improving every day at quarterback is their quarterback. A bunch of backs: Cordera Eason, Brandon Bolden, Enrique Davis, Dexter McCluster, their wide receiver who could catch that screen pass and go 90 yards.
That's one thing about a Houston Nut. You never want to count out a Houston Nut coach team. They're going to be physical. They're going to be fun to watch. Dexter McCluster is an awesome player, 5'8", 165, super speed, agility, and don't let the size fool you. He can play big time. I like Dexter McCluster.
Offensive line: John Jerry, right tackle. He leads them, and they got 3 returning starters on the O-line. But let's watch out for Patrick Patterson, their tall receiver, true freshman, 6'3", highly touted.
One thing that's good about him is the fact that he comes in to a situation where he can play early. They use a 3 wide receiver set. He's going to be that inside slot guy. It's going to allow him to learn on the run. I love the fact that he has big time speed. He's tall, and so that's going to break through. That's going to help the Ole Miss offense break through. I like Patterson coming in as a true freshman. He's more polished as a true freshman wide receiver.
Defensive side of the ball, probably the most notable name, the long, lengthy Greg Hardy, who was injured last season the first couple games, ended up second team SEC. Marshae Green, their cornerback. Kentrell Lockett, another defensive end. And they bring in highly touted cornerbacks, Darius Barksdale, Jamar Hornsby, who's a tall JUCO corner. So they're secondary. They're getting the secondary together. Houston, that is.
Don't forget about Kendrick Lewis, 4 interceptions last year as a safety. You look at the defensive line. I always got to start out with the big guys up front. You look at Lawson Scott, big guy. Nose tackle, Taylor Lawrence, big guy. So that helps that defense run. That's going to free up stuff on the outside for Greg Hardy. When he's healthy, it's unblockable. So that's a strong defensive line. I like Ole Miss defense.
Schedule: they avoid Florida, but they have to travel to South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Auburn. It's manageable. Should be interesting how Houston Nuts team fares with high expectations.
One thing they got going for them, they can stop the run. They're 2.7 yards a carry. You have that going for you in the SEC, you'll win a lot of games.
The Alabama Crimson Tide, 12-2 last year, were 12-0 before losing the SEC championship to Florida and getting stung by Utah in the Sugar Bowl. Nick Saban's third year, they returned 13 starters. Of course, a 3-4 defense is what you think of. They lose John Parker Wilson. They're going to bring in Greg McElroy, who's going to play quarterback. But they got the great, of course, they always got the backs. They bring in Trent Richardson, who's also a highly touted running back. And, of course, Mark Ingram, the banger up front.
Mark Ingram has a unique, is one of the top backs, I think, in the country. I like his size to speed ratio. He's 5'11", 215, good balance. He's a real solid prospect. And I'm interested to see Trent Richardson come in and what he's able to do. Because I may be one of the few people that wasn't overly impressed with what I've seen on tape. But I'm really interested to see how he fares in the SEC. He's a big guy. So the running game is going to be fine. They have a lot of depth at running back. Even when Saban was at LSU, he had depth at running back. But, you can't talk about Alabama offense without talking about the big wide receiver and Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, another sophomore. If this guy was eligible, he'd probably be the first wide receiver taken, probably a top 5-10 pick. Also Marquise Mays, Mike McCoy. The receivers are there, but the question mark is going to be on the offensive line as they only return 2 starters. Antoine Caldwell, the great center leader, and of course Andre Smith, the hog molly, the left tackle. They're both gone. They both get drafted. Tyler Love, who got injured last year, and they redshirted him because of that, he's going to come in. Can this offensive line, stay up to par as they were last season is the question mark.
That's the big question mark. And when you start an inexperienced quarterback with the inexperienced offensive line, that's a recipe for disaster. So for Alabama's sake, I hope the offensive line does show up.
They bring in highly touted DJ Fluker. He might have to step up also. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball, and you cannot start talking about this defense without mentioning Mount Cody. That's Terrence Cody, first-team All-American, And of course, their great linebacker, who is third-team All-American, Rolando McClain. Plenty of defense here. Saban keeps it the infusion.
14 points a game, 2.7 yards per carry. You do not run on Alabama's defense. That's going to win you a lot of games in the SEC. That's one of the reasons why they're favorites in the SEC West. You also look at Javier Arenas. A lot of people know him for his game-breaking ability on return.
Special teams.
Yeah, special teams. But this guy can really play cornerback. And you know a saving corner can tackle. I love physical corners that can tackle, play the ball in the air, and can make plays on the ball. So I like that defense. Every level has a star on it.
Dante Hightower probably getting overshadowed by McClain, underrated sophomore linebacker, and they bring in Nico Johnson, highly touted linebacker also. Kareem Jackson in their secondary, a guy I like, and they bring in Dre Kirkpatrick, who's 6'3", and this guy played D-back. When you get those tall guys, if they got the speed to combo it, that's great for them.
And Chris Bonds as well, too. They did an awesome job recruiting on defense.
They're at Ole Miss on October 10th, and that's followed by home games against South Carolina and Tennessee. Let's see if they could put it together the way they did last year, and another team that was kind of under the radar.
Good thing to get LSU at home.
Can they handle success? Another question mark.